Hello, I'm Melinda Smith. It's only 4 weeks away till Christmas and the Central Coast branch of the Smith family are crying for help. The situation here has been described as desperate for hundreds of young kiddies who may miss out on the goodies that Santa brings.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Last month, the New South Wales Farmers Association complained proposed changes to credit laws didn't address problems faced by rural borrowers. Association President Michael Tooth said, although lenders are not required to declare effective interest rates and disclose full terms and conditions of loan agreements, the association would provide legal assistance to producers it thought had been treated unfairly by the lending institutions. Now, the association welcomes recommendations made in the government's Rural Credit Inquiry report. The inquiry heard submissions from the association and more than 1,000 individuals. If the recommendations are implemented, fees and charges other than interest relating to credit contracts will be prohibited. Stamp duty would also be removed on the transfer of farmers' credit arrangements secured over farm real estate from one credit provider to another. The report also recommends improved disclosure of interest rates and the use of effective annual percentage rates and periodic statements.
Coal and Allied's Board of Directors has been meeting in Newcastle to discuss the future of the company's 11 Hunter Valley coal mines. Chief Executive Bruce Thompson warns the future looks bleak without more government and union concessions. A report tonight. For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Every year, the Smith family asks others more fortunate to help those in need. And this year, the problem has worsened. The Central Coast branch at Gosford launched its annual cash and food appeal 2 weeks ago. And so far, the response has not been good. The area has double the national average figure of unemployed living in the popular tourist destination, where high rents add to the financial burden of low-income families. And that's where the Smith family helps out with food, money and toys. With 280 families already on the waiting list, it could be a bleak festive season ahead. In these hard economic times, everybody's feeling the pinch, but it's the children of low economic families that feel it the most. If the Central Coast branch of the Smith family don't get the help they're asking for this Christmas, hundreds of young kiddies won't get the goodies that Santa brings.
At the moment we have 500 children's names for our toys, and we have already taken 200 names for Christmas hampers to assist with, but that is in only 2 weeks. So you can anticipate what the next 4 weeks are going to bring to this branch.
Secretary Manager of the Central Coast branch, Claire Gillespie, says the Smith family will gladly accept any donations from those willing to make someone else's Christmas a little merrier.
We've never known it to be as bad as this. And of course, naturally, we always hope that we will cope, but from all indications, it's going to be very bad. And that is why we're asking for help from our supporters in the community.
The Excalibur club was set up by a group of locals just after Newcastle was admitted to the Sydney League competition. They adopted King Arthur's sword Excalibur as their club name to symbolise support and security. Today they presented the Knights with a cheque for $25,000. The club currently has a membership of 40 with a limit set of 100. It costs each member $1,000 to join for the first year and $500 thereafter. For the members, they get 2 reserved grandstand tickets for home games, as well as other privileges. Most of the 40 members are businessmen who are finding benefits already from their membership.
We designed as an exclusive club because we feel that we can give a lot more input to it by being exclusive, plus the fact that we can make opportunities for ourselves in business because a big percentage of the members are businessmen. and we have a lot of sportsmen as well, which is very important to us to be involved. And I think as professional people, one of our big outlets in life is to go and enjoy sport.
This display at the University of Newcastle's Supernova Centre is just the kind of thing the CSIRO wants to see more of. The informal education program is a first step towards reviving interest in science among school children who are turning away from that field in droves. The CSIRO has started a national science club called Double Helix to give young people interested in science every chance to follow their career, and that's why the club has now officially thrown its support behind the Supernova project. National Coordinator of Double Helix, Ross Kingsland, says Australia's future hinges on the success of these science recruitment programs.
With the diminishing returns from natural resources at the present time, we have to develop our other industries, and science and technology is going to be the basis of those industries.
By involving young people in these informal science get-togethers, the university and the CSIRO hope to give them a greater avenue into the world of science, from access to equipment not seen in schools to advice and guidance from leading scientists.
It can be the turning point when they meet scientists from CSIRO, from universities. It can be that little spark that changes their whole life.
Over 200 Singaporean students at Newcastle University gathered last night to farewell those of their countrymen who finished studies in Australia. Newcastle University has built up strong ties with students from Singapore, once up to 50 students enrolled each year. Next year, due to government quotas, perhaps only one student from Singapore will enrol. That's because Singapore is no longer seen as a developing country. Their places will be filled by students from other less fortunate lands. But the Singaporeans say Australia could be losing an opportunity to forge stronger ties with their country. Ambassador for Singapore, Joe Conceição, was an informal guest at the dinner and declined to speak directly about the problem. However, he did hear the students' views.
As senior students, we would like to see this good tradition to be carried on, and we have enjoyed very much of Newcastle, and I think it's a big shame if no other students in the future can enjoy this.
The ambassador later stressed the links between the two countries and specifically the ties between Newcastle and Singapore. Those ties are likely to be strengthened next year when the university takes the unique step of presenting degrees to Singapore students in their own country.
As far as I know, no university has ever had a degree ceremony overseas in this way before. Doubtless there are some, but I don't know of them. I think it's a very appropriate one. We enjoy having students from Singapore. There have been a very large number of them over the years, and we're looking forward to this. The 44-metre brigantine with its crew of young Australians arrived in Fremantle on the 1st of this month. After a spell in Sydney, the tall ship is on its way to Newcastle, the first of 8 ports of call before being handed over to the Australian government during the First Fleet reenactment. With a fair wind, the young Endeavour will be safely in Newcastle port by midday, when its gangway will be lowered for public inspection at Lee Wharf.
The Matara festival has become somewhat of a Newcastle institution. It has been running for the last 27 years and has been going from strength to strength. For the past 10 years it managed to financially break even. But this year there's been a disaster. It ran the usual events in Civic and King Edward Parks, the National Poetry and Concerto competitions and various community theatre events. But it has suddenly found itself floundering deeply in debt, with many of its bills still to be paid. The Matara directors came out with this statement today announcing a $16,000 debt. They said it occurred for a number of reasons, including the failure of some sponsorship to materialise, high administration costs and the failure of some events to be self-supporting. The festival will now ask Newcastle City Council to bail it out of the red. If this fails, it will consider taking out a loan or declaring itself bankrupt.
Alan Border won the toss and decided to bat, and it wasn't long before it looked like he had made a mistake. In the third over, Robbie Kerr was caught behind off Jeff Lawson for a duck. In the very next over, his opening partner, Torres, was on his way back to the pavilion, also with a duck. He was caught Taylor bowled Gilbert, and Queensland were struggling at 2 for 7. Greg Ritchie and Alan Border looked set for a big partnership when only 10 minutes before lunch, Border was clean bowled by Mike Whitney for 21. First ball after lunch, and the disaster continues, and the Maroons were 4 for 78 when Glenn Trimble was caught leg before off Lawson. That brought Ian Botham to the wicket, who along with Ritchie put on 34 before Ritchie was caught behind off War for 64. However, just 10 runs later, and Botham was bowled by Gilbert for 25, and Queensland were struggling again at 6 for 122. Henschel was the last hope for a big score, but he was bowled by War for 5. Luckily for the Maroons, the tail wagged. Craig McDermott made 18, Peter Anderson 36 and Dirk Tasler 24 not out.
About 400 members of the Australian Air League gathered in Pacific Park today. They came from all over the Hunter Valley and from Sydney. After assembling themselves in their various units, they set out on what was a spectacular march to Civic Park. According to Bruce Potter, the head of the local Air League group, it's the first time that a wing parade has been held in Newcastle for the last 40 years.
Inspection today is to get the kids together. It's a drill contest more than anything else, but it's also a way of just showing the people of Newcastle that they do have an Air League unit and what the Air League is about.
On their arrival in Civic Park, they were officially welcomed by the Lord Mayor, Alderman John McNaughton, before he began his official task of reviewing the units.
Life for the people of Fassifern is about to become a little more pleasant thanks to the start of a $1 million sewerage reticulation scheme. The project is the result of decades of campaigning by residents who turned up today to witness an official start to the work.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Almost 200 Fassifern homes will benefit from the project, which is part of the wider Hunter scheme. The 5 kilometres of pipe mains and pumping station are jointly funded by the Lake Macquarie Council, Public Works Department and Hunter Water Board. Naturally, representatives of each group, as well as local government leaders, private contractors and residents, put in an appearance at the official start of work this morning. Member for Lake Macquarie, Merv Hunter, said residents had fought hard for the second major sewage scheme in the Lower Hunter. He put aside the traditional silver spade in favour of a more robust backhoe to turn the first sod. It's anticipated that work on the project will be finished late next year.
The Christmas Bowl appeal is conducted by member congregations of the Australian Council of Churches. It's not a door-knock appeal. Instead, money is raised by churches in their own individual way. At today's launching was the State Executive Secretary of the Australian Council of Churches, the Reverend Dr Ray Williamson, and Bishop of Newcastle, the Right Reverend Alfred Holland. It's hoped $2.5 million will be raised this Christmas to fight hunger, poverty and depression throughout the world.
Once again, Ethiopia is in the news about the famine and the failure of the crops and the need of the people in that country. And just the other day it was announced that the Australian Council of Churches is making available immediately a grant of $50,000 that will go through the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church in Ethiopia to assist those people, and more money will go from the Christmas Bowl this year for that purpose. In Eritrea, a similar sort of story is the case. And also in India, with the drought, a program to provide 500 villages with hand pumps to provide clean and usable water for those people. They're some of the major projects that are there for the Christmas Bowl this year, and a very great need to help meet those needs.
At 45, David is an environmental consultant specialising in the use of Australian plants for revegetation and afforestation. With wife Patricia, he has a propagation nursery near Grahamstown Dam, producing a wide range of natives for retail nurseries. They once offered a landscaping and plant hire service, and Australian native plants for indoors is based largely on experience gained from this and frequent field trips. In fact, David Radcliffe himself was surprised to find the publication is a first.
My own interest in using plants indoors led me to look to the experience of others, and it simply wasn't there.
It has a particularly good layout in my view, the way there is pages and pages of chart and then the explanations that follow. Have you based that particular layout on any other books?
We did have a previous book on which I worked as a partner, in which we used the same chart in the centre. The chart to me is a marvellous piece of work that we used in a nursery catalogue some years ago. It enables people to quickly select the plants which they'd like to read about in some detail further in the book.
It makes it very, very interesting to read. 416 particular plants are mentioned, is that right?
Exactly, yes.
What are a couple of the most interesting ones?
Well, there are two that come to mind. One is a little insectivorous plant from Western Australia called a pitcher plant. It's a very nice little plant for the bathroom, and light airy bathroom, or perhaps the windowsill. It's one of those that relies on catching insects to increase its nitrogen supply for fertilising. The other is a plant from the other end of Australia, right up in Cape York Peninsula. It's a plant that actually makes a home for ants on the inside, and you can see there on the base of the plant that bulbous piece is in fact a warty-like growth inside particularly, in which the ants thrive, live and die.
While David has studied economics and law at tertiary level and has a strong commitment to environmental education, he says his qualification in this case is his wide experience.
I think it's merely a matter of some 20, 25 years of practical experience.
The Caribou is best known as one of the ferries which competed in the annual Sydney Harbour Ferry Race. She had been sailing on the harbour for 75 years, mainly on the Taronga Park Zoo run, until tragedy struck in 1984. After competing in the ferry race, she sank to the bottom, putting the old lady out of commission. However, Aldo and Hannah Katalinic of the Central Coast saw potential in the old vessel. They refloated and refitted her at a cost of $300,000. Today, she was thrown open to the public at the Hardy's Bay Public Wharf, where some 500 people inspected the grand old lady. In February, the Caribou will be moved to a temporary mooring near the Gosford Aquatic Club, where she'll become a floating seafood restaurant.
There are now more than 40 families in the Newcastle district that have adopted Korean orphans, thanks to a long-term relationship between Australia and Korea. Every year the families join together for a huge picnic to share the joys and problems of raising their children. A growing concern is the existing bureaucratic delay in gaining government approval for bringing more orphans into Australia. Andrew and Ruth Taylor already have one adopted child and want another. They're prepared to go through the same exhaustive screening process carried out by Youth and Community Services, but say a lack of departmental staff causes unnecessary lengthy delays. So what are the Korean children waiting to find a new home?
Pleased to say there that they are in good, generally good foster care, but I think it's a case of humane circumstances. The impending parents like to get to have the children as soon as possible and as early as possible.
The Taylors say they will lobby member for Charlestown Richard Face and, along with other adoptive parents, plan to pressure the government to streamline the adoption procedure for future couples. In Newcastle, the King Street Fair has become a definite Christmas shopper's delight. Thousands browse through the colourful carnival, choosing goodies from about 150 stalls. For those looking for a cool spot in the shade, entertainment was provided by the bands. Finding that special gift for someone was no problem, as a wide range of pottery, handcrafts, artworks, plants and the traditional cakes and jams provided more than enough gift ideas for Christmas. The street fair wasn't the only attraction in Newcastle yesterday. Just down nearby Wharf Road, the Royal New Zealand Navy anti-submarine frigate Wellington lowered down its gangplank, allowing the public to climb aboard. It's the warship's first visit to the city, and her crew of 250 were impressed with the Novocastrian hospitality they received. Today, Wellington sails out of Newcastle Harbour after her 3-day stopover. She'll continue sea trials before heading back home to New Zealand.
An army captain and a telecom linesman who joined forces to foil an armed hold-up last year were rewarded at Newcastle Police Station today. The pair gave chase to a gunman and later provided vital information leading to an early arrest.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
A middle-aged man is in a stable condition in Wallsend Hospital today after suffering multiple snake bites last night. A hospital spokesman says the man was unable to identify the snake and received a polyvalent venin. Local wildlife expert Ian Beat-Hill tells how to recognise common snakes this summer and what to do if the unthinkable happens.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.